PK52, the Saturday morning meeting. Over the next few weeks, what I'm going to try to do is I'm trying to narrow down selling cars in 2000 and 2020, 2019, and where the customer's going. It seems like the longer that I've been doing this business, the more the older type of approaches seem to be coming back. It's really never been the car business. It's really the people business. And you've got somebody out there that's decided they want a new or a pre-owned car. They may not need a car. They're driving a 4 or 5 year old car and there's nothing wrong with that car. I'll prove there's nothing wrong with that car. We really want that car in trade because we can find somebody to buy it, overnight. So the car they're trading in, there's nothing wrong with. We're going to take it through the shop. We're going to spend somewhere between $800 and $1,600 in the shop. And I always make the statement in class that every customer that trades a car in will tell you there is nothing wrong with that car. That car needs nothing. They've done all the services and everything's good. Everything's good to go. It's going to be the best car you've ever taken to trade. You can sell it immediately, make a lot of money on it. And then you come back and you have an average of, $1,100 to $1,300, depending on the car, a little bit more if the car is certified, on every single car you have on the lot. We even spend quite a bit of money on the cars that come out of track rental. So the total rental program, inside of 12 months, when that car comes back, we spend several $100s getting that car ready to sell. So the investment of the pre-owned car in the dealership is something the customer never thinks about. And the customer's never going to think about anything until you bring it up. This is kind of old school. I put this together for my last managers meeting that I just had in the LA region. And I always tried, when I do a managers meeting, to come up with something a little bit different. We did this back in the 80s. So it says, this is on a certified deal. This certified used vehicle, this certified vehicle is reserved for Jack Johnson. And then I've got the TCUV tech. The person that did the tech was Jay Michaels, a master diagnostic tech. Used car manager is Bobby Smith, and the service director was Gabe Hernandez. So I cut this out. It becomes a hanger. One of the managers said, "Where did you get that?" And I said, "I printed it on the computer and put it on cardstock and just ran it out on my printer." So when the customer comes into the dealership, the car's in the front of the dealership in the reserved area. And, I've gone to a lot of stores over the last couple of years, and there's no reserved area. In fact, when the customer arrives at the dealership, now the salesperson's scrambling to find the car that the internet department has had a conversation with the customer over a 3 or 4 day period of time, and they know exactly what they're coming to look for. And when the customer gets there, there's a scramble to find the car. I've never understood that. As a salesperson, it doesn't really matter how the dealership does everything, quotation, this is the way we do it. As a salesperson, if I know I've got a customer coming in this case, Jack Johnson, that car is going to be in front of the dealership. In the worst case scenario, Mr. Johnson doesn't show up and I park the car back. But I don't think a customer should ever come to a dealership and not have a car reserved for them if they've made any kind of inquiry to the store. If they've called, if they did a chat, if they've done any kind of contact digitally, email, or through your internet department, that car should be pulled up. And if it's a car that's a special or a unique car, like maybe a 2-year-old, really super low mileage Camry XSE, why would you not put a brand new car beside that car and have a choice for the customer when they come there? All of these things require additional work. But I want to kind of challenge that for a second. I don't think it requires additional work because I think it speeds the process up once the customer gets to the dealership. Pardon me. If I do anything to speed the process up at the end, I spend less time with the customer's happier. If I waited to start the entire deal when the customer actually arrives at the dealership, and I still believe there's a lot of dealerships that don't think a customer is real until they actually get to the store. And I'm not trying to endorse anybody, but I believe Carvana and Vroom and these companies out there that everybody said would fail are starting to prove that the customer really doesn't actually have to come to the dealership to buy the car. In the 80s and the early 90s, I was delivering cars to customers at their offices. My dealer said, go and do it. I mean, you guys buying a Land Cruiser. If the guy can buy a Land Cruiser, let's go take the car to his law office and let the rest of the lawyers that work there look at the Land Cruiser and see that we're willing to go the extra mile in service, and maybe they'll buy a Land Cruiser too. I don't know if you guys know it, but when Toyota started out in my life, there was markup on some of the cars. From invoice to sticker price was a little over $100, and my dealership made sure that the minimum pack on the car was $250. So if you sold a car at sticker price, it was still a $50 minimum commission. So to sell the upscale cars, that's the only way you could really make any money on selling a new Toyota. But to sell an upscale car, a car that's not a base price car, you need an upscale kind of format and an upscale delivery. So the things I want to talk about over the next couple of weeks are, what are the fundamental things that we need to practice on every day? And I hate to be repetitive, but sometimes you say things more than once. If you've ever been coached in a sport, if you've ever played a musical instrument, you get it. If you play a musical instrument, you play the same chord on a guitar multiple times until it becomes trained to your fingers, and you don't have to think about, sticking your tongue out and finding where your fingers go to hit that chord. You have to do it so many times, but it comes natural. Your brain just automatically locks it in order to play a sport, and in order to hit a round ball with a round bat, which I've heard people say that's the toughest thing in the history of all sports, is to hit something thrown at you with the same spherical object. It'd be easier if the bat was flat, cricket, that you must take multiple times at the plate, seeing the ball thrown, swinging the bat until you're a professional, or at least good enough to play in a prep school game. Same thing with the car business. This has been maybe the longest summer of my career. And normally what I do is everybody comes to me, it's a hotel venue or at the region, and I have these massive classes, and we talk about, a few items, and we're really repetitive about those items, and we try to move the ball forward. But this year I've done a lot of in-dealership training. And I got to tell you, in my preference, I like to come to you. I think it's easier for you guys to show up at work and for me to be there with you than you to travel through the city and come to me. But both have their benefits. But when I get into the store, I know you think I'm there for just the agenda of doing the training, but I'm watching. I'm watching everything that's going on. I'm listening to your interactions with the managers. I'm listening to your interactions with the customers. I love to be a fly on the wall over there and hear how a salesperson starts the sales process, whether the customer's contacted the dealership or not, or whether they just stop by, where all of these deals shape from. It's easy to know how they finish. The customer either buys the car or they don't. That's the end. But man, they can take a million different avenues when you first start with the customer. And the more you practice your skill set, the better you're going to be. There are several things that can make you a living selling cars. Number one is, if you can get the trade for the value that the used car manager placed on that vehicle, that's going to increase your opportunity in a one-price store to deliver the car, or in a store that pays on commission to be able to keep a little bit more money in the deal so you can feed your family. But if I have to over-allow on the trade, where I have to drag money out of the new car to pump up the value in the customer's mind, then that money either cancels the deal, the customer thinks they can get a better deal somewhere else, or it starts to shrink the percentage that I'm going to get. It's just the basics of the game of selling. But just talking about the trade, we don't do a trade walk anymore. I don't understand that. Why do we spend so much time walking around the lot trying to select a car, having a conversation about the features and benefits of the car, and then we don't sit there and work the trade with the customer? Again, let's go back to the basics. I don't want this to be too long, but let's go back to the basics. The customer will look you in the eye and tell you that nothing needs to be done to this car, that everything is perfect, and it's going to be the best car you've ever taken in trade in your life. And I don't think they're making that up. They drive the car every day. Of course the passenger side window doesn't roll up or down. The switch has been broken for 3 years. But you know what? It's no big deal because they just leave the window up. Of course there's some stainage in the carpet in the back seat of the car. And they would have got the stains out if they could have. They tried. They couldn't get the stains out. But it's not a big deal. The car's 4 years old and it's supposed to have stains on it. Of course there's the air conditioner doesn't really blow as cold as it did, but boy, the summer's really been hot this year. And so what I call that, when I'm doing training at the base core I call that I can't see the forest for the trees. The antenna broke off the Tundra a year ago. Radio doesn't play well. You get 5 miles out of town, you don't get radio anymore. And it's not a big deal, you just don't play the radio when you get 5 miles out of town. So the customer doesn't really realize how much the car has disintegrated because they've used it over time and they've not maintained the car. So once I've shown them the new car and we've driven the new car, why would you not drive the trade with them? It is Monday through Thursday. Let's talk about that block of days. That is not a giant traffic day for the majority of salespeople. Most people don't sell 5 to 6 to 7 cars a day every Tuesday. They might get lucky to work a deal on a Tuesday. So when I'm working that deal, I need to make sure that this customer understands fully the value I'm giving you for your trade is not something I'm trying to do to cheat you out of your money. It's what the car's actually worth. When you drive the car, why wouldn't you take Lincoln's head on a penny and put it in each tire while the customer's looking and just jot down, this car's at 330 seconds. If it's at 330 seconds, we have to buy a set of tires for the car. How much is a set of tires? If you use a core number at $1,000, then that means the trade, if it's worth $15,000, automatically became a $14,000 trade because we have to spend $1,000 or we can't sell the car to somebody else. If there's a chip in the windshield, they could have had that fixed. If they had insurance, the insurance would have paid for it and it would have been fixed. But once they trade that car in, we can't call their insurance. We've got to pay to get that fixed. The majority of dealerships in the United States paint the front and rear bumpers on virtually every single car that's over 3 years old because that is the first thing you see. You see the front of the car, the back of the car, and if the bumper's all scratched up or gouged up, then that takes the value out of the car. So we have the guy come by in his truck or his van with all the paint gear, and we paint the bumpers. How much does it cost to paint a bumper? What is a full detail, full recon cost of the car? Did you look underneath the car? Is the frame rusty? I did a dealer walk with a dealer a couple of weeks ago. It was pretty cool. They asked me to come in early, and we walked all the trades they took in the night before. And I love it when the general manager and the used car manager get out there and go and sit there and take notes. Do we keep this car? Do we run this car through the auction? That should be done every day at every dealership, but we don't do that. We have one person that makes those decisions, and sometimes they're busy and the decisions don't be made. If you stop your day every day and look at the actual trade and do we want to spend the money to bring this car back to retail shape and sell the car, I like that walk. I looked under this little Tacoma and the frame was gone. So at that point in time, that's a car that if I can't get warranty claim on the frame, then we're going to send that car to the auction. Those are the cars that the other competitors, the independent dealers, sell against us online with stock photos. So number one, walk the trade, write the trade up. I like a schematic of a truck or a car, and if there's paint damage on the hood, I write paint damage on the hood. I mean, I'm not trying to trick anybody. There's paint damage on the hood. Why would I not take an extra 15 minutes and completely walk the car? Open the trunk. Is the spare tire in there? Is there any tread on the spare tire? Does the spare tire have air in it? If it doesn't have air in it, I assume that somehow the air got out of the tire. And so I'm going to write spare tire needs to be replaced. I'm going to open the hood of the car, and I'm going to write needs a full engine detail. By the time I get through with this, it's crazy. We spend an average of about $1,100 to $1,300 on every single car before it goes for sale on our pre-owned or certified lots. Before I get through with the write-up of the trade, it's going to be somewhere around that money that it's going to take us to get that car ready to sell again. And that money should come directly off the retail value of the car. I want to give the customer a full book value of the car. Let's say, I don't know, give them extra clean book. Extra clean book minus the things that would have needed to be done on the car to make the car be extra clean book. I'm going to stop right there. That's where you ought to be with the trade on every single customer. Why would you not do that? It's part of the money in the deal. The second thing is, I listen to you guys, and I know that maybe that's kind of invasion of privacy. But when somebody's working a deal with a customer and I'm in your dealership, if you look up and I'm there, I'm listening to you. How are you presenting the numbers? How did you start the numbers? Did you start the number at asking price of the car? I don't care what window hanger you have in the car. If the car was $29,995 and you now have the car for sale for 27 grand, you start at $29,995. If that was the original asking price of the car, the first thing written on any paper or any computer printout should be the asking price for the car. If you've discounted the car, then there should be an actual line of how much you've discounted the car. Customers always ask for a discount. Why wouldn't you? You need to show them the discount so they don't have to ask. It's crazy, sometimes my wife and I will go shopping and we'll go get some vegetables. And you know, the vegetables aren't always, it doesn't look like they just took them off the truck today. You know, a little bit of broccoli and maybe there's a little bit of blanching on the edge of the broccoli. You know, you can go to the produce manager. All you got to do is ask for them. They're in the store. They work a lot of hours. Produce manager comes out and says, hey, really, I'd like to buy this and everything, but it looks like you guys are right at the end of the shelf life of this. Can I get a discount on the broccoli? Now, you guys may think I'm wrong. Try it. The next thing you know is they give you, they print you out a little sticker and you're buying the item for a little bit less money. But you know what's funny? We'll go to 8 dealerships and work as hard as we can to save $100 and spend 3 or 4 weeks at a car dealership. But I go grocery shopping every week. How much money could I save if the can was dented or if I worked the deal on the vegetables and everything? But people are too busy to do that, but they're certainly not busy when they come to the dealership. So the starting price was $29,995. I've discounted the car down to $27,000. I've clearly shown the discount, and then I've done the rest of the numbers. The more confident you are at presenting the numbers, the easier the yes is for the customer. If it seems like when you get through disclosing the numbers that everything is there and you've left nothing out, there is a large group of people that will just actually sign the buyer's order. In one of my videos on the YouTube that I've done years ago that people talk about all the time is where I physically sit down and show you how to give or take, put the numbers down, bring your eyes up, bring your eyes down, and ask for the authorization. That isn't the only way to present numbers, but it is a structured way to practice presentation. I'm going to finish this up today by talking about any athlete or any musician, or you pick the topic. You can't be the greatest musician in the world if you don't practice more than everybody else. If you look at the greatest athletes, if you look at a Magic Johnson or a Michael Jordan, or if you look at a Pete Rose, or you know the list. You know who your superstars in sports are. If you look and do some research, read a book that's written about them or a book they wrote themselves, they were on the field before everybody else. They stayed after practice. And as a youth, they worked harder at the sport than anybody else did. Now, they were already a gifted athlete. They were the best in the game. But they were never going to continue to be the best in the game if their practice habits didn't put them at that level. Think about all the things that you do. We'll talk about it in the next couple of weeks. What are all the things I do that provide revenue for me? But it's not just about you making money. It's about all the things you do, so when that customer's sitting across from you, they are super confident that you've done everything the right way and presented everything in a way they can understand, and it becomes easier for them to do business with you, not just once, but from now on. This has been Saturday Morning Meeting, talking about daily practice habits. Take a few minutes this next week, write down the things that you think that you should be practicing on every day. Find another sales professional, another service writer, another technician, another internet director, another internet or BDC associate. And every single day, start with practice so that you get better. The better you get at this business, the longer I get to keep you. And you can't believe how awesome it is when I walk into a dealership or a big meeting room and I know you guys. It's the coolest feeling ever, because I know if you're still here, then you're making a living and you're taking care of you and you're taking care of your family. This has been PK52, the Saturday Morning Meeting. Practice, practice, practice. See you next week.